culture is actually driving the work that we do. It's not just there to be fluffy. It's not just there to make everyone feel good. It's actually, how do we get things done in a way that is meaningful to us, that gives us purpose, that makes sure we're driving impact.
Welcome back to the CultureCon podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Zach. We're the co-founders of CultureCon and your hosts for the show.
This episode is part of a special series we created live on site in our podcast studio at CultureCon West 2025 in Las Vegas.
To capture these conversations, we partnered with our friends at the People Forward Network, our podcast media partner. A huge thank you to Nikki Llewellyn-Gregory, who stepped in as host for these live studio sessions.
These episodes feature real-time insights, stories, and leadership lessons shared during the conference, giving you a front row seat to the energy and impact of CultureCon.
And we're excited to bring you along. Let's dive into today's conversation.
Hey, it's Nikki back at CultureCon Live, and this time CultureCon West in Las Vegas. Check out this view. This studio is amazing. I'm loving the vibe in here.
I'm looking at the Eiffel Tower over here.
Yes, Bellagio. The fountains are about to pop up. This is incredible. Well, Linda, I know we had a chance to meet. We're new friends, had a chance to meet and prep for this time together. And I want to thank you for joining me. And I'm so excited to hear about the DraftKings transformational journey that you're going through. Before we do that, though, you've had a lot of incredible, significant roles as a chief people officer. You are that now. You've been in many different workplaces to have a lot of experience there. So before we go into the case study that we want to learn from with DraftKings, you know, we think about CultureCon and so many in the audience that are attending or listening, they are chief people officers, chief culture officers, or they're aspiring to be that. I would love for you to share with us, as you reflect back on your leadership journey, how has your leadership perspective and the way you lead changed?
Yeah, it's been a journey as well. And for a long time, I thought leadership was really around, setting the strategy, making sure people are operationalizing that strategy, following up with people on goals, et cetera. And now I've realized more and more how much it is around human connection, around creating the environment for people to do exceptional work, understanding the importance of ongoing dialogue and feedback. But having that human connection is so key and critical. And it's much less about hierarchy. And once upon a time, I felt it was more about hierarchy. And it's much more about humanity in that. It's also a world where as you become a more senior leader, you often think it's your job to keep things off of your boss's plate. And they're there to help you also. They want to help you. They want to solve problems with you. And that's been an incredible experience that I've also had with my current boss, Jason, he will help me think through things and come out with a much better solution and a much different answer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to dig in a little bit before we go into the story behind the work that you're doing every day. There's a lot of people that talk about, let's make the workplace human, and we're bringing our authentic selves and rooted in meaning, but sometimes it's lip service.
Yeah.
And so I want to give illustration of what it really looks like. What does it really look like to lead from a human-centered place, human connection standpoint? Maybe some examples or a story?
Sure. We're at a place in the world right now where things are so uncertain when you walk out of the door, virtual or real. And we can't control those things.
Yeah.
So what people are walking into every day in the workplace, first of all, they want to know what they're walking into, good, bad, or indifferent. And a lot of companies try to make everyone feel really good, but they're not actually sharing the truth. So sort of that transparency, creating awareness, having empathy for what is actually happening in the world, in people's lives, in people's work, and having courage to do great work. And realizing that some of these things are not juxtaposed to one another. They work together. So you can have a high accountability culture, highly operational culture that's still a very human culture rooted in all of this as well. And an example, a couple of weeks ago, we were rolling out some of our work with our performance development program. And with that, we're eliminating ratings. And I know some companies have done this before. We believe we've got it right. And there was uncertainty and potentially lack of trust in why we were doing this. And I had a really candid conversation with our most senior leaders in terms of why we're making some of the changes, and also sharing some of the data about historically what we were trying to accomplish And did it actually accomplish that? No. And in this case, I believe we were spending a tremendous amount of time on a process as opposed to spending that time on connection, on true development of people. So people felt like it was more easily connected to compensation, et cetera. But what you'll find in people's data is it is actually not. And it's eventually pretty evenly spread, and you're not recognizing and rewarding your top performers. Whereas this moves us into a world where it's more about that conversation, that connection, and truly investing in developing a human.
So good. The thing that I'm being called to think about right now, just to share this message with others and for my own leadership, is how often am I just communicating human to human?
Yeah.
Rather than the agenda. How many times it's like, we got 30 minutes and I think we can squeeze 7 things in, but, just traveling here with one of my team members, Lucy, we had conversations that we would have never had during the travel time, right? There was a session at CultureCon kickoff last night around frustrating moments. And we were expressing, like, it was an exercise for leaders to express when you're frustrated with something. How do we do that better? And Lucy and I were partners. And I said, this would be such a great exercise for our team. Not necessarily, and our culture isn't this way where we'd be like, and Jason, what he's doing. It's more of just the things that frustrate us that aren't flowing, right? And to hear that, because Lucy and what Lucy shared and what I shared, it was new. It was new to us. And so how often are we just connecting human to human? I love that.
We did this as an exercise actually with my team. We talk a lot about headwinds and tailwinds, as opposed to like having show and tell every time we're together of all the great things that are happening.
Yeah.
Getting more into like, this is where I need help. And we had a session in our last on-site with all of my leadership team where we actually talked through where we have friction in working with one another and how we're going to work on fixing that together. And we've been together as a team for a year and a half. So we're to a point now where we're able to have those meaningful conversations. But the outcome of that sort of 60 minutes together was so incredible. Now, we weren't in a space a year and a half ago to have that same conversation, but it was so meaningful and impactful. And the team felt really great about acknowledging it. And that comes back to that frustration piece. Or there's also a world where, are you frustrated? Which actually leads to, like in terms of feelings, frustrated and disappointed. Because frustrated is angry and disappointed is like sad.
Yeah.
And also there are moments where people let us down and we're not mad about it. We're sad.
Yeah. So good. Okay, so we get to dig in. Yeah, I want to hear about DraftKings culture transformation project that you've been working on for a while. You're in the thick of it right now, or the fin of it, or whatever. Here's the challenge. We get to break all this down in like 10 minutes. Since this is a mini episode.
We got it.
So let's start with the why.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to prioritize this? There's a lot of things you could do, right? Why did you choose to prioritize this project?
Yeah, it was an ask that came from one of our co-founders. And when I started to dig in with him, I was like, I'm looking at our data from our employee surveys. I'm not seeing a spike in any problems. But when it came down to it, it was the fear of what could go wrong if we really don't make sure our culture is really strong and really clear for all of our people. So it was kind of getting ahead of that instead of being behind that, which I think is incredible. I think too many companies wait until after it's a problem, and then it's a much tougher ship to turn.
It's amazing if we don't have to solve fire drills, right?
That's it.
No fire drill. We're ahead of that.
That would be great.
We all want that.
We all have our own self-induced ones that are like the worst of all. So that was kind of the genesis of it. And I was asked to, a couple of weeks later, present at the ELT meeting, to which I responded, I'm like, I don't really have enough time to have meaningful data and conversations and do some research leading into it. I was pushed to do it anyway. That session was not good. But then I said, you know what, let me take the time. We believe this is important enough. Let me take the time over the next 3 months to do a level of research into the organization and to come back with something really meaningful in front of all of you. And that's kind of where that began. So that's kind of the March to June timeframe on that.
We want to give a quick thank you to our friends at Culture Shape. They're really helping people and culture leaders design and deliver higher impact programs through a single source.
Yeah, and one of the things I love is their culture wheel. It's a 12-month visual calendar that makes it easier to plan, organize, and communicate culture programs across the whole organization. It's a simple way to get stronger buy-in and support.
And right now we got a really cool promotion for our CultureCon podcast listeners. you can get 50% off a one-on-one 4-week online consulting program with Pete Savage, CultureShape's CEO. These spots are limited, so if you're interested, head to cultureshape.co/CultureCon to grab your place.
And in an organization as large as yours, lots of people, this is a big thing. Culture is huge. You know, it's like it's the one initiative that has no box.
Right.
It's people, right? Like it's so much. How did you do it? How did you start to execute for the why of this project?
Sure. We took a few different paths. And what I would encourage people also is to know that you don't have to do it alone. There are vendors, there are companies that can help you with some that cost you money, some that are free. So in our case, I partnered with 2 professors from Columbia, and they're doing a piece of cultural research they've done across multiple companies. And we inserted 2 questions into our employee opinion survey that all of our employees answered and took data from that. And the 2 questions were, think of a colleague that really embodies the greatest of our culture and our values and describe that person. And then they had to choose 3 things off of a list. So they had open text to describe, and then they had to choose 3 items off of a list that were kind of most important to us culturally. So we were able to get that data from our sort of 5,500 employees to use. And then my wonderful researchers took that away and came up with all sorts of insights that you could not believe out of 2 questions.
I'm like, I want to know. I want to
It's
know.
so good.
Like,
I'll
what were
send you
some
the
of the
whole deck.
highlights? So, like, give us a little cliff notes of like what surprised you.
Yeah.
What was like, oh, this confirmed? Anything you can share that?
So I think there are a couple things that really that were not surprising but confirmed, which were amazing, was how culturally aligned our ELT is. And what I'd say, one of the things that I found also, I did one-on-one ELT interviews, I did roundtable interviews with broader employee population. Every single member of our ELT would do something to the detriment of their own function for the greater good of the company. And now we'd like to say that all companies operate in that way. There's oftentimes people are fighting for territory or, trying to be the CEO's favorite, et cetera. It is really a team sport, which showed in the data. So that was not surprising, but was nice to confirm that. The 2 things that were really surprising were things that are outliers to what I think most people believe exist in all cultures. One, our remote employees were as culturally aligned as our hybrid and in-office employees.
Wow.
So when there's this entire push that you have to come back to the office for cultural reason,
Yes.
no, actually, we've been able to be successful around that and have that cultural connection. Now, we do bring people together, but we're super intentional about it. So it's why do you come together? Why do you collaborate? So that was a wonderful aha.
Yeah.
And there are moments where I want to test some things, but I don't want to test our ways out of it. So the other thing that we found was that our females who were highly aligned culturally were our very top performers in the company.
Wow.
So it was kind of a push for really high performing, amazing.
That is
women.
such empowering data.
Yeah.
The way that people feel in your company when they hear those outcomes, like from this research.
Yeah,
That's
so if you
empowering.
feel like you were part of this culture and
Yeah.
we connect you to this, you can soar.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what has happened so far from outcomes you've seen? Energy shifts, results, like you're still in it, you're still working
Yes.
through it. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
But what are some of those favorite stories so far of outcomes?
Yeah, I think first of all, you start to see how our ELT, our executive leadership team, and then our SLT, which is kind of the next layer of leaders, where they're starting to shift some of the stories that they're telling, the things that they're highlighting. Because at the end of the day, culture is in many ways defined by the stories that you tell and, the worst behavior that you're willing to accept. So, for example, at our Ignite, which is our leadership development program, we have an on-site piece that lasts for 3 days. And people work in teams. They actually run their own companies against each other and are trying over a course of 3 fake years to do better. And we could already hear people talking differently about how they're making decisions. So for us, we wanted to make sure that, culture is actually driving the work that we do. It's not just there to be fluffy. It's not just there to make everyone feel good. It's actually how do we get things done in a way that is meaningful to us, that gives us purpose, that makes sure we're driving impact. And we were already seeing changes in that behavior. And even from a cohort that we did back in March to a cohort that we did now, we could see the differences. And this was during that time, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's also an even bigger shift and focus as an executive team on customer. So when we were talking through the culture, and we know what makes us so strong and so powerful, and it is that connection to the customer, and we realized there were too many conversations where that wasn't in there enough, and we didn't want to lose that. So even thinking about what are we afraid of losing, so you always hear someone, okay, well, what does that do for the customer? What is the customer outcome? How does that improve their experience, et cetera? So you already see some of that movement happening. And then we've also rolled out radical candor through the organization. And this was something that when I joined DraftKings, one of our co-founders and I kind of bonded over this. I spent a lot of time listening to radical candor podcasts, walking my dog during the pandemic. And he and I both really thought there's a lot of value there. And I'd seen tendencies that when we're working at our best, we were sort of leveraging that framework. And my colleague said the same. He's like, yeah, let's go. So we really pushed and worked to roll that out. And the good thing is when people are experiencing this and they're learning it, they're like, oh yeah, actually that feels like us. It doesn't feel like some sort of fake thing and fake set of questions and conversations that I'm having. So we're already incorporating that into like quarterly check-ins, into the way we give feedback, into where, how we talk at the beginning of meetings, et cetera. So we're seeing some of those live and breathe already. But we know this is a long game. It's not you flip a switch and everything is there.
Yeah.
But also making sure it lives and breathes in all of our programs, in all of our verbiage, and what our CEO is saying, what our leaders are saying through the organization.
From everything that you've shared so far, just want to note that this kind of leadership, these kinds of companies really change lives. And I can imagine, as I'm sitting here proud of the work you've done, you and your team have done, I'm like, I just feel this sense of pride for like what you're doing, because I care so much about meaningful workplaces where people stand taller and they are operating from their strength zone and they feel heard and seen and connected. That's not the majority. And we're all like working on this shift towards that. So thank you for modeling the way. And I can bet that you have a lot of brand ambassadors out there, because there's, the work that we do to find meaningful work. It's a deep inner soul search. And then as leaders, it is a deep inner work to apply all that we know, right? To bring out this meaningful work. But you can't manufacture feeling proud of where you work. Like that is an outcome of a lot of right efforts.
Yes.
And so to be celebrated. I'm
you.
so glad that you're here today and
Thank you.
we're able to share this to inspire more leaders. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. And what a great experience up here.
No, it doesn't get much better than this. So thank you for having me. I
Thank you
really
so
appreciate that.
That's a wrap on this episode of the official CultureCon podcast.
If you got something out of it, share it with a friend, a teammate, or a fellow culture geek.
And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And if you want more ways to stay connected and inspired, check out our upcoming events page for a full listing of webinars, workshops, and conferences.
You'll find the link in the show notes, and we'd love to welcome you to a CultureCon event soon.
Until next time,